All right, Kari Phillips, we are live. This is the first one where I have to drive the bus. So hopefully this will go well. Hopefully I'll be able to manage everything. And if not, too bad, so sad.
People will
There's
be
all
forgiven.
there's always next time, right?
Great. This is my
All-
first live stream too.
yeah. So I got some things I want to handle here pretty quickly, but just to get us started here today, let's just do a quick little intro of you. Let me just tell everybody about you, and then you can fill in the gaps a little bit. So I met Kari at the LVR orientation when I was a brand new agent. She went there and did a presentation, and at the break, we got to go up to the vendors and ask them questions and stuff. And so this is her version of the story, is that I went up to her, was talking to her, asking her a bunch of questions, and I was like totally monopolizing everybody else's time. And she was like, easy, rookie. You you need to give everybody else some time. So she was trying to meet other people and stuff. But anyway, I was just trying to find out if she really, if what I always say is if the lights were on up there. And I found that was definitely the case. And over the years, Kari and I have come to know each other really well. We've become great friends. And now we teach CE classes together. And the reason we do that is because we like to bring the perspective of a realtor and a lender to the table as education for realtors. And I'll explain here in a minute why I thought that was such an important thing to do. But Kari has been in the business for, is it more than 25 years?
Since 1999. So this is the 25th year.
Yeah, 25th year. So make sure you stay close, Kari. I'm not able to hear you as well again.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Yeah. So 25 years, and over the time has been a very, very successful loan officer, has done lots and lots and lots of loans, has lots of experience. And I happen to know that she has an MBA, which I obviously very much appreciate. We MBAs got to stick together. And I also happen to know that she is a very good mom to her two daughters. And pretty much every conversation eventually leads back to her two daughters. So how'd I do, Kari? Anything else you want to throw in there and add?
No, pretty good. I love to golf. I love to wrap extravagant gifts, like crazy gifts.
They're very, very good.
They're very crazy. I've been married to my college sweetheart for 22 years. It was July 26, 2020, or 2003 is when we got married. So we moved to Vegas in 2002 and moved my parents out here, moved my sister out here. We all live within 5 minutes of each other. The one rule we have that has worked over the last 23 years is you can't just show up. You got to announce yourself when you come over. Otherwise, you might walk in on something that, could be embarrassing. But anyway, I started at Bank of America, National City Bank. I went to a brokerage, and now I'm with Guaranteed Rate, which is an amazing company, and I own my own branch, and so it's like kind of owning your own franchise. So the nice thing is I run it. So
we'll get into all of that branch stuff here for sure. Very good. Okay, so before we jump into anything loan related, I just want to make a quick note to anybody watching this live or on the replay. This is part of a crazy experiment that I got talked into by my friend Lacey, and it is to go live on my Facebook and YouTube channel every weekday for the month of August. So this is the third one, and as I mentioned, this is the first one where I'm sort of, driving the bus. So we're going to talk tonight about mortgages. And I just want to make a quick mention that tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing an agent who has been in real estate, has had his license for 47 years. So there's lots of history and wisdom. And I was talking with him at a party once about the history of real estate and all of the things that he's experienced over the course of his time in the business. And there was some stuff that I was just blown away by. So that's tomorrow at 1. And I'll be doing a live stream with him, Steve Matthews, and that one should be very interesting as well. So make sure that you tune into that and listen to how far we have come as an industry. I promise you, you will definitely be surprised by some of those things.
Like
All
no
right,
cell
Kari.
phones before, and they use paper and fax machines, right? Like,
Oh yeah, that's part of it. It's worse than that though. It's some of the stuff that he's going to tell us about is even worse than that.
that'll be
Kari,
fun.
when we first when we were getting to know each other, you and I decided to meet every Wednesday morning at a Starbucks at Cheyenne and 215. And why don't you talk a little bit about that? What was interesting to about that to you?
Well, I found out through our conversations that you are also a business consultant and that you've run several businesses. You got your MBA from Michigan. And so I wanted to know how to be a better business owner. I wanted to also get in the brains of real estate agents. And in return, you wanted me to tell you all of the stuff that lenders don't talk about. And so I felt really, very vulnerable because you were a real estate agent that referred business to me. And I was about to indulge all these, things that mortgage lenders don't talk about, don't share with real estate agents. But it ended up being the healthiest several years that we had once a week. And I took notes, you took notes, but it was a way to share the nitty gritty of both sides. Real estate mind, business mind, and a mortgage lender mind.
Yeah, and from my perspective, the reason I was interested in that was because I learned really quickly in my career that the way that a client felt about the transaction had everything to do with if they were going to refer future business to me, and how well they thought that went had everything to do with their personal experience. And their experience, I realized, is paramount. And I also noticed that there were agents who really didn't know what they were doing. They didn't really know how to do a real estate transaction, but the clients were tickled pink at the end. And those agents have been very successful because of the experience that they gave to the client. And I've also seen agents who I know really know the business. They really know the forms, they know the contract in and out, and yet they seem to sort of struggle, or their clients at the end don't have quite as good of an impression as some of the other ones. And so I was like, wow, the experience of the client matters. It's paramount. It matters almost more than anything else. And then I also realized that in our business, there was a lot of this and this happening between realtors and lenders. And I learned really quickly that the experience that my client was having in the transaction depended a lot on, you're on this side for me. I don't know if you're over here on the live stream, but
I'm the other side. Yeah. Okay.
depended a lot on the lender. And I started to also realize that the lender or the client doesn't really know the difference, where the line is between the realtor and the lender. And so I was like, okay, if their experience is paramount and their experience is very much affected by the lender, and if there's a lot of this going on between lenders and realtors, I need to have a really good relationship where it's more like this between the realtor and the lender, because that way it gives the best experience to the client. So that was really important for me. I really wanted to understand that. And then as we started meeting, I realized, ooh, there's a lot of stuff that these lenders don't really want the realtors to know. And how did that feel for you, Kari?
I felt like I was getting naked in front of you every Wednesday, not literally, but like take the clothes off. Here we go. Share the secrets. But, from that is how we created all these CE classes that we give to our real estate agents, because our classes are really about just pulling the curtain back and getting real so that, we all become better.
Yeah. One of the things that I realized pretty quickly about you is that you are a full disclosure lender. You disclose things to the realtors and to the clients that I've noticed lots of other lenders either try to trick the realtors and the clients, or just certainly keep it really close to the vest and don't want to show that. And when I've seen you go on a Zoom call with a client and pull your rate table up right there on the screen where they see what you're making and they see what the deals are and, they see the margins and all that kind of stuff, I just was very, very impressed with that. So that's what caused me to want to do business with you. And then eventually as we met, we decided, okay, we got to start teaching some classes together. And I think probably the one that we have, well, there's a few that we have a lot of fun in, but the one that probably draws the most because of the title is The Dirty Secrets of the Mortgage Industry. And in there, we talk very openly. You share very openly with realtors about those, what all those things look like. And let me just show really quickly, if I could, on my screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's see. How do I get there?
You got this.
Give me one more try. One more try. Let's see. Oh, I thought I knew how to share my. Oh, it says I'm sharing my screen.
You are.
Do you see it?
I don't see anything. It's black.
Okay, let me try it one more time, and then if not, we'll give up on that idea. Share. There we go.
Okay, there.
All right, so this right here is our Eventbrite page. We call our CE classes the Unmundane series. And right here is a list of all the upcoming classes that we have through the rest of the year. And there's that Dirty Secrets class that I mentioned. So that Eventbrite is, let me see if I can pull this up on the screen. Right there, that Eventbrite is found at unmundanece.eventbrite.com. So if there's any realtors watching this who want to sign up for some of those CE classes, I promise you that it will be an experience that is unlike you're used to having. So let me get rid of that. Okay, Kari, let's jump into a little bit of some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today. So when we do our CE class called Mortgage Milestones, we always start off by asking realtors this question. We say, how many of you would be willing to go out and show houses to clients before they've talked with a lender and you know that they're qualified for a mortgage? And Kari, do you want to share with everybody what the response usually is when we ask that question?
No one raises
No one
their
wanted
hand.
to.
No one raises their hand.
And that's pretty understandable. It's because in realty school, you're told, make sure that you're not wasting your time or the client's time, and that you make sure that they've qualified with a lender, assuming that they're going to finance it. Obviously, a cash deal is a little bit different, but assuming they're going to finance it, make sure that they're qualified. And there definitely are a few cases, a few examples of situations where maybe you would show some houses without having them pre-qualified for a mortgage already, but those are pretty rare. And so what we say then is, so then what we do is we explain the pre-qual. So a client goes to get a pre-qual. So Kari, why don't you tell us, what do you do when you're pre-qualifying a client, when they first approach you? What is the process that you follow?
So it's either taken over the phone, or a client does a mortgage application online, and it asks them name, social, date of birth, where they work, how much they make, what their assets are. If they own any property, we take that information. I ask them, do you have any bankruptcies, foreclosures, judgments, IRS liens in the last 7 years? We go through. That's the bulk of it, and then I run their credit. I first run it on a soft pull. I don't run a hard pull until they're actually in contract, so it doesn't hurt their credit at all. And then I run their credit combined with their application through a system called either DU or LP. It's the automated underwriting system for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And then in about 30 seconds, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, they combine the risk factors of the application and the credit, and then they give a result of either approve, eligible, or a denial. So based on the information that they type in or verbally give me.
Okay, so let's say then you get an approval, then you create a pre-qual letter. You send that out to the client and to the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so what we then do in the class is we say, okay, so your client's now met together with Kari. They've done the pre-qual together. You have a pre-qual letter, and then we say, now who's willing to go out and show properties to a buyer? And every hand in the room goes up. Everybody's willing. And the few that don't raise their hand, they're kind of lying, because I'm a listing agent. I do a lot of listings and I receive a lot of offers. And almost always what happens is the offer comes over in an email, which is the RPA, the residential purchase agreement, and a pre-qual letter that just basically says what you just described there. So, but Kari, when we have a pre-qual letter as an agent and you as the lender, what really does the client have at that point?
I mean, they have the letter looks very official looking. It looks very, it It's on, letterhead. It has an equal housing logo on the bottom right. It has my license number. It has the bank's license number. It says that this file has been underwritten by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And it says, this is how much you're qualified for. But it's all based on verbal information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no paperwork at that point that's given by the client for a pre-qual level 1.
And so with a true pre-qual at that point, you have not done anything other than run them through an automated system and taken verbal information. You haven't actually seen income and asset documentation. And so is it possible that a buyer would say, yeah, I own my own business and I make $500,000 a year. And that could be quite different when you get the tax returns and see that, okay, maybe the revenues were $500,000 a year, but the expenses were $490,000 a year.
Yep.
And so they're really not showing any income on their tax returns, right? And then also income could be, income and assets could both be very different.
Yeah, they always want to give me the highest number, because it makes them feel good and look good to, say that out loud to a lender. But then when I say, well, you had 500,000 gross, but 480 of it were expenses, then I'm stuck with a $20,000 qualifying income, and that doesn't work. But I don't know that at pre-qual level because they haven't given me any documentation yet.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting because we'll come back to this question here in a minute, but everyone put in your mind this question of, well, why do mortgage companies do it that way? Why would lenders send out a pre-qual letter and tell the client that they're qualified before they've actually seen true income and asset documentation? So when I'm coaching a realtor, I call the pre-qual letter a toilet paper approval. And I do that jokingly. But the reason that I call it that is because I have to think really simply. And what I do is I say to myself, who can still screw up this deal? Can the lender still screw up this deal? And with a pre-qual letter, the answer is always yes. So now, Kari, why is it that, what if I walked into you and said, hey, I make $500,000 and here's my assets and I want a pre-qual letter? What would happen if you said to me, well, hey, I'm not going to issue that pre-qual letter. I'm going to wait. And I'm not willing to do that yet.
Well, I could lose my license. I mean, I could be looked at as I'm discriminating against Caucasian men, right? So if verbally the client qualifies under the guidelines of the product, I must give a pre-qual letter.
Yeah, very good. So we'll come back in a little bit to why this happens the way that it does in our industry. But so pretty quickly, we see that a pre-qual letter really doesn't give us very much. And the really smart realtors and clients realize this, and they don't want to be going around out there with a maybe. And so there is something that is the next level of approval. We're going to talk about 3 levels of approval. So the pre-qual is the first level of approval. And the second one is the next level of approval. What do we call that one, Kari?
Conditional loan approval. So
and what is that?
Yeah, this is where I collect income documentation, asset documentation, W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns, bank statements, signed authorization. I order a verification of employment. I put that all together in a bundle and I send that off to an actual underwriter with a heartbeat, not an automated underwriting system, but an underwriter that goes through all the documentation and gives a letter of approval. And it says, based on what you have said and what documentation you have proven, this is what you should qualify for.
Okay.
So next level.
Yeah. So basically what this means is that now you've collected the stuff that we were just bothered by that we didn't have with the pre-qual letter. The conditional loan approval is coming from an actual underwriter, somebody that has a heartbeat, not just an automated system. And that underwriter has looked at those income and asset documentations, and that person has said, okay, you're approved.
Yes.
So that should make us feel really good. And if we ask realtors, okay, now who would be willing to go out and show houses? Pretty much everybody then is like really feeling strong, right?
Yep.
Like if they were willing to with a pre-qual, if they have a conditional loan approval, they're really going to feel strongly about that. Okay.
Yep.
But Are we out of the woods yet, Kari, with that? Let me put up on the screen. This right here is an actual conditional loan approval, and it's 2 pages, and all of these things on there, it's probably too small to read on the screen, but all of these things on there are actually the conditions of the conditional loan approval. And the first time I ever saw this, I said to myself, this is an
No,
approval?
you said out loud. You said, this is an approval? What? Because
Yeah.
there's, 20 things that still have to be satisfied in order to get the financing.
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, this looks like all the reasons we couldn't do the loan. Okay. Now, there are some conditions on there that can hang you up. So, Kari, do you want to give us one example of one of the conditions that was on that one we were just looking at, and maybe give us a story of where that's been a problem for you in the past?
Yeah. So one of the conditions, let me just read it for you here, because it's, I remember this client, his name was Gus Mustang. You can't forget a name like Gus Mustang. And one of the conditions is provide, let's see. Oh, where is this condition here?
It was the MERS report, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. MERS report. So it says MERS for each borrower is required. So a MERS report is something that where a lender does this background check. And it not only it shows when a client had a bankruptcy, a short sale, a foreclosure, and believe it or not, some of these things, these big items, don't show up on a credit report all the time. And what showed up on the MERS report was a bankruptcy, and it happened. Excuse me, it was a short sale, and it showed up 3.5 years prior. And the guideline with conventional financing is that it has to be it has to be 4 years or more for a short sale to have been on there in order to qualify for lending. In FHA world, you can actually do 3 years out of a short sale, but this client had to do conventional because the loan amount had exceeded FHA limits. So, so on this MERS, it said borrower had a short sale 3.5 years ago. I called the borrower and said, "Hey, Gus, I remember when I had taken the application over the phone, because this is an older gentleman. I remember taking the application. I said, have you had any bankruptcies, foreclosures, short sales in the last 7 years? You said no." I said, "What about in the last 4 years?" You said no. I checked the credit report and there was no short sale on there. So, okay, I move on. Well, I said, "Well, on this background report, it shows that you had a short sale 3.5 years ago." And he said, "Well, I didn't have a short sale." And, like I got all excited. I was thinking, oh, maybe this government, background check isn't correct. But he said, "I didn't have a short sale. My son had a short sale. I co-signed for him, but I wasn't on that. I wasn't on that house." Well, when you co-sign for someone, you have all the liability of what goes into that mortgage. And so he had a short sale that was on his background, and we couldn't do the mortgage for him. So now that was with this conditional loan approval. You think, okay, it's a higher level. It went through underwriting. We should be good. Well, that was a mortgage bomb that totally.
Yeah. So I'm over here thinking, wait, okay, so I'm smart enough to know I don't want to just have a pre-qual. I want to have a conditional loan approval. So I send in all the income and asset documentation. It's looked at by an underwriter. I get an approval letter, and we still can have one of these mortgage bombs go off in our faces.
Yep. There's another one on here that true story. Like this, one of the conditions is that the borrower is to give us their trust documents. The borrower had given me 2 months bank statements that showed that the name of the bank statement was in his name and the trust name. So he had, $500,000 in this bank account. So we had the assets. But one of the conditions, again, was to give us the trust documents to see if there was anything that, any rules behind this trust account that we didn't know about. And the borrower said, "Listen, Kari, my attorney is in New York. He charges $750 an hour. Let's just wait until we're in contract in order to, get the actual trust document. So it saves me the money in case we don't end up getting in contract and whatever." So we finally get in contract. We're 3 weeks in. We ordered the appraisal. We ordered the inspection. Borrower spent money. He's got his earnest money that's been deposited into the title company. We finally get the trust documents, and this 28-year-old kid who's buying a house is on on the trust, the father was a big 51s fan. If you remember the Las Vegas.
Yeah, the Aviators are what they're called today, but they used to be the Las Vegas 51s.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the trust, it stated that his son got access to this money when he turned 51. And the guy's 28. So he had no more assets. He didn't have, gift funds. He didn't have a solution.
So wait, let me just double check again. No pre-qual, conditional loan approval, reviewed by an underwriter, income and assets, but we still had one of these conditions blow up in your
Blow
face.
the whole thing up and deal
Yeah.
died.
So I know that, Kari, early in your career, you sort of were doing it the way that other lenders do it, which is how we've been describing it. And I'll just make a quick little tangent here to mention that realtors that are watching, this is one of the things that we can do to improve our industry is we can give more qualified buyers to these lenders. Because when you talk about why does a lender do it this way, why would a lender not do more of this work up front so that we don't have these kinds of problems? Well, the reason is because realtors use lenders as like a filter, and they just wing every little thing over the fence at the lender and then just hope the lenders are going to do it. And so the lender isn't motivated to go through all the cost and time to get the buyer all the way approved before you're actually in a contract. Now, Kari, you early in your career, you did it this way because it was just the way people do it. You always,
way.
Yeah, it always sort of bothered you. But then there's one story that you've told in the CE classes before that I'd like you to tell now, if you're willing to, that was like, that was it. This was the final straw, and where you said, okay, I'm doing this a different way. And that's going to lead us into the third level of approval here in just a minute.
Yeah. So it was about 8 years ago, and I had done a conditional loan approval for this bride to be. And Cody always knows I get emotional when I'm telling this story because it was heartbreaking. We got a conditional loan approval. She had sent out invitations. She was getting married in her backyard of her new house. So invitations are out. Dress is there. Like, everybody's been invited, and they get into contract, and a mortgage bomb like the MERS report comes up when we're 3 weeks into the contract. And I had to actually call this bride to be and tell her that she did not qualify because there was a blow up that happened. And I remember sitting in my office and sliding down the wall and saying to my partner at the time, I am either going to get out of the business because I cannot make this call ever again, or I'm going to do something different. I have to do something where it's not my fault, like where I've cleared all of these borrower conditions, even if it has to go into the underwriter a second time, meaning I get this conditional loan approval. I then say, okay, Mr. Borrower, these are the 10 things that you still need to get me. I get those 10 things. I turn them into the underwriter. I then have a new, what we call a WISE approval, where everything on behalf of the borrower is signed off, that the only thing left on the approval letter has to do with the collateral. So contract, appraisal, title work, earnest money, things that have to do with the property to be. And that way, if a mortgage bomb happens where the appraisal comes in low, or the borrower goes and does something stupid, like open up a car loan or something in the middle of contract, it's not my fault. I don't have to make that, oh my gosh, I suck as a lender and I'm ruining your whole your day of being a bride ever again. So I created the WISE approval.
That right there definitely is a super gut-wrenching story. I mean, I can't even imagine having to be the one to call that bride. And I'm sure that, there's no, sure she was just super logical about it, and there was no emotion whatsoever involved in it. We're talking about one of the most important days of somebody's life, and you're having to call up with bad news. So I can totally understand why you said that was it. I'm not doing it like that anymore. And so let me just reiterate for those from the realtor's perspective, why this is such an important thing. This WISE approval means that you give them the pre-qual, then you collect the income and asset documentation. You submit it to an underwriter. You get the conditional loan approval that we just looked at. Then you go and take all those conditions that can be satisfied prior to being in contract, which is pretty much everything related to the buyer, and you resubmit those things back to the underwriter, and the underwriter signs off on those. So you have assurance that that person actually qualifies for the mortgage. I personally think that this should be a rule. I think this should be like against the law to do it the other way. We as realtors, I think, do our clients a huge disservice if we're running around out there with pre-qual letters and even the conditional loan approvals when we don't really know if for sure they qualify, because those things can definitely blow up in your face. Now, the other thing that this does is this makes your offers exponentially stronger. This is really the secret sauce for realtors. And when the market is a little bit slower, there's less appreciation for this. But for the last, as long as I can remember in Las Vegas, it has been very hard for buyers to get offers accepted. If there's a really good house, it means that all the buyers really like that house. And then they're going to have multiple offers. And how do you differentiate yourself? And so I will just share with all the realtors out there, as a listing agent who receives lots of offers and knows what those look like. Typically, like if you're in a hot market, you'll list it on a Wednesday. By the time Monday comes, you usually have multiple offers. And there's usually one that's like super low ball, and you're just like, okay, that one's never going to happen. And then the rest are kind of tightly packed around what you're asking. If you've asked the right number, and good listing agents know how to do that. And so there's nothing really that differentiates those offers one to another. Now, when I'm representing a buyer, what I do is I get this WISE approval, and then I go to the listing agent and I say, hey, like if you're the listing agent, I say, Kari, I'm about to push send on an offer to you on your listing on 123 Main Street. And I just want to let you know really quickly that this buyer is what we call WISE approved. And obviously we don't take 30 minutes to explain it like we're doing today, but I say what that means is that this buyer is already fully underwritten. We've actually satisfied all the conditions of the conditional loan approval, which means that this offer is, in my opinion, even better than cash, because these guys love this house. They're not going to be fickle about it. They're not going to back out. And we've already done all the work to know that they actually really qualify. So you can have assurance that that's really going to be the case. And lots of times, I wouldn't say lots of times, I would say about half the time, the listing agent will actually let me get on a phone call when they're presenting the offers to present that to the seller. Now, does that not feel so different than all the other offers that are coming through? It puts me head and shoulders above the rest of those the rest of those buyers, and differentiates it in the mind of the seller and gives that seller peace of mind. And this is one of the things that lots of buyers don't realize, is that sellers understand that they're going to basically have their house off the market for 30 to 45 days. And lots of times the buyer still has contingencies during that time. And one of the longest contingencies is the loan contingency. And if the loan ends up not being approved and the buyer still has their loan contingency, that seller has to go back on the market. They have to give the earnest money back to the buyer, and they've lost all of that time. So it's not just a function of price when a seller is considering what they're going to accept from a buyer. The quality of the buyer and the quality of their loan qualifications is actually a really, really big deal. And this is a huge secret that for the longest time I was totally not willing to share. Now I teach this in my CE classes, and we're going live to share it with everybody else. But as far as I've been able to gather, the offer acceptance average in Las Vegas in the long run is around 20%. 22% is the number that I was able to gather last time I looked at this. So about 1 in 5 offers is getting accepted. Only 1 in 5 offers on average, which means that the other ones are not getting accepted. But for our real estate group, I keep really close track of this for me and my team. Our offer acceptance average is better than 94%. And this right here is probably the biggest reason that we're able to make those offers be so strong for those buyers. And I one time had a lady come up to me at church, and she said, "Hey, our friends are telling us that we should fire our realtor and hire you." And so, I
And
mean,
you're like, yeah.
of course, I think that's the case. No, so what I said was, I said, well, let's talk about it for a minute. And I asked her what's going on. And she said, well, we've submitted 33 offers that have not been accepted. And I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of offers, 33 offers, and none of them have been accepted. And she was like, yeah, and we're getting really desperate because we have to have housing. We're like, this is really getting serious. And so, and I said, well, what's your strategy? And it was like a blank stare. She had never talked with her buyer's agent about strategy because the buyer's agent had never brought it up with her. And so I said, even if you don't work with me, that's probably not the strongest example of a buyer's agent. I would definitely consider switching agents to somebody who's going to have a strategy. So anyway, she hired me. And to make a long story short, we went out and very quickly were able to get offers accepted for her.
And she got WISE approved.
Yep, she got WISE approved. We were to use that as a huge tool, huge asset for us. And we were able to very quickly get her offer accepted. And I'm telling you, this woman thought that I walked on water because of that. And I stopped counting when they had referred me 18 other clients. I mean, it has been a very nice referral relationship. And it was because they had a very tough situation that we were able to use doing some pre-work to set them up to be as successful as they could possibly be.
One thing I'll also add that if you're a real estate agent out there listening, when you do submit an offer, you don't teach the class like Cody does. So he feels very comfortable calling the listing agent and describing a WISE approval. I want to call that listing agent on our behalf and explain what a WISE approval is, how well qualified the borrower is, that I've been a lender for 25 years. That extra call from the actual source, the lender, helps as well. So don't feel like you're going to be out there on an island, having to describe what a WISE approval is. I make that call myself.
Yeah. So for any realtors out there watching this, even if it's on replay, I just put a little scrolling banner across the bottom there for you with Kari's contact information. Or if you're just a buyer watching this and you want to try to get yourself qualified for a mortgage and you want to do that with a lender that's a great lender like Kari, you can just reach out to her there on her cell phone. That's her number, and you'll be able to make an appointment with her.
And it doesn't cost anything to get WISE approved, and it's good for 120 days. And all I have to do at the end of 120 days is to say, hey, is everything the same? And let's do another soft pull, and away you go with another pre-qual. Or with another WISE approval. So don't feel like it's something you have to, close on something tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because lots of times clients think, oh man, I gotta go through the pre-qual process, then I gotta turn in all my documentation, I gotta wait for the underwriter, then I gotta see what the underwriter says, and then I gotta submit it all back in. And it's really not that daunting of a process, and it really can happen very quickly, just depending on how quickly Kari gets the information from you. But I would say, like, on average, it's probably takes about 10 days to get a WISE approval. And there's lots of other things we're doing to prepare before we're actually going out to see houses. And so lots of times we have that WISE approval before we even go see any houses. And certainly usually by the time we go to make offers, which is where we really want to have that, because then we really know that we're super strong. I'll just mention.
I've gotten a WISE approval in as little as 4 days because the person was on it and uploaded the things in the portal and wham, bam, and we don't sit on it. So.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest differentiator there is just how quickly someone gets you the information. If it comes to you quickly, I've seen your team is able to turn it around really quick. I'll just mention really quickly that in the upper corner of this live stream, there is a QR code. If you scan that code, it will take you directly to my calendar and you can schedule any time with me. I genuinely want to help realtors elevate our game in our industry. I have been on a mission for about 5 years to try to help as many realtors as I possibly can and try to create an environment of teamwork and collaboration, even if we're not in the same brokerage. And our group of realtors, we have coined our name the Synergy Community, and we specifically called it that because we do very much feel like we are a community. And I personally believe that if we as realtors don't stick together, there are some forces that could actually give us some problems. But if we will collaborate together, then we stand a much better fighting chance. And I put my money where my mouth is, because Kari and I teach a lot of CE for free, about 100 hours a year of CE that we teach. But yeah, if you'd like, no matter which market you're in, any realtor across the country, scan that QR code, book some time with me. Be happy to have a discussion with you. Let me just mention one thing related to our Synergy community. Every year we do a massive service project on or around October 6th. That's almost always on October 6th. It is our Synergy and eXp Realty Day of Service. It's a company-wide effort, but the Synergy community runs we run point on it in the city of Las Vegas. And every year what we've done is we have taken our efforts to benefit a veteran. And I'm talking about big renovations to their houses. It's usually between $50,000 and $60,000 of value. And this year is actually really special because the veteran that we're going to be serving, his name is Bob. And Bob is actually the founder of a nonprofit called Voice of the Veterans. And Bob actually opens his home to other veterans to come and meet, and they can share and support each other. And it's kind of like a meeting place for them. And when we saw where he's doing that with them, we thought, oh man, we can make this be a lot better for these veterans. So not only are we going to be helping Bob, we are going to be helping all the veterans that Bob helps. So
I love that.
We already have a massive effort underway. We have lots of vendors and contractors who are going to come out and support us.
What's the date on that, Cody?
October 6th. And I have put in the description of this video the link to the Eventbrite page. And let me just see if I can pull this up on the screen here.
And while he's pulling that up, there's also usually food there and, waters and, it's so much fun actually, because there's like a crap ton of people there and you get to I don't know, scoop dirt and bang walls and,
Yeah.
And it's a good cause.
So look, if you can go to that Eventbrite link and either join us on the day of to help us with your labor, that's obviously very helpful. But there's also in the description of this video a link to the donate. It's a donation link. And let me see if I can pull that one up. I'm definitely not as smooth at this as other people.
It's your first one. It's all good. You're doing great.
Okay, look at that. Look at that. I got it. So this link is also in there. This right here is the donation page where if you can't join us, but you'd be willing to give us a little bit of funds that we can use towards some of the materials that we need to buy, that is something that we would very, very, very much appreciate.
And PSI is partnering?
I don't know. I'm not running point on this one, so I don't know the details, but
okay.
Yeah.
PSI is an amazing organization too.
Yeah, very good. So we are trying, our goal is to raise $25,000 because we need that for the materials that are not being donated. We have about $20,000 to $25,000 of materials that are being donated, but we've raised about $5,000 of cash. And, obviously we'd like to get about another 20,000. So anybody who can help us between now and then, we definitely very, very much appreciate that. All right, Kari, we have a couple of questions and comments here. So let me just bring a few of these up. So Lacey, Las Vegas gal, hi guys, excited for this live. Thank you for tuning in, Lacey. Appreciate your support. And thank you for dragging me into these deep waters, as I keep saying. We also have Ursula on. She says, hi guys.
Woohoo, Ursula.
Glad that you could join. Here's a good question from Lacey. Question for Cody and Kari. As a new realtor, what is the best way to learn about lending? What would you say to that one, Kari?
Oh, well, we could get on a Zoom, we could get on a call, we could meet for coffee. You're not going to know, if your goal is to know about lending, just know that you just want to probably scrape the top of it, know the basics, because I'm going to handle the deep stuff with the lending, and you're going to handle all the deep stuff with the real estate agent part. But I think the best way to learn about lending is also to attend our CE classes, because we do a lot. Half of those classes have to do with, again, the background stuff of mortgages, and it's not to teach you how to create a debt to income ratio and how to calculate tax return income.
Thank goodness.
It's really I know all the fun stuff that I love. It's really to know what you can do as a real estate agent to be proactive, to have the smoothest possible transaction for your borrower. What things should you give to a lender up front? What things should you encourage your borrower to do between the time that they're WISE approval and they're in contract? I have an app called Kari the Lender, Kari space the space lender. And on there is a bunch of marketing, and one of the marketing pieces is called the do's and don'ts for your borrower. So when they're looking around at houses, you want to, who can screw up the deal after a WISE approval? The borrower. They can go, quit their job, make a bunch of cash deposits, quit their job, not continue to pay on their bills, go open a car loan that they didn't have on their credit. So I always there's a saying that I have that I'm like a dentist to a borrower. I'm like a have to. You as the real estate agent, you're like Disneyland. You are the fun part of their process. Right. You're showing them the houses and you're taking them to their new mansion, And so you're going to be spending a lot more time with them. You're going to have their ear a lot more. I'm like, where you're going to have their attention. So if you can share with them the do's and don'ts of how to not mess up a deal, and encourage them to get documents over to me when I need them, and encourage them to keep saving, and encourage them to keep paying their bills. That is really good teamwork that you can do to know what your part is in this lending world.
Yeah. And I just put your information back along the bottom there because I've never known a lender not willing to sit down with a realtor to share with the realtor what they need to know about lending and how you can really help your client. So I know that if there's any realtors out there watching that really want to understand lending better, Kari's a great resource for you there, and her cell phone's going across the bottom. You can make a note of that, reach out to her. I'm sure she'd be happy to get together with you, and she'd be happy to comment that. And Lacey said, hey, thanks for answering. New realtors are so overwhelmed, and it's good to have you in our corner. So thank you very much for that. I think one more here. Let's see. Can you explain the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval? Oh, this came through very early, and I knew we were going to be getting to this stuff. So thank you for asking that question, Ursula. Kari, I think we covered this, but if there's anything else about a pre-approval, WISE approval that you just want to mention here, that now would be the time to do it.
Well, just remember the pre-qual is all verbal toilet paper. It gives you an idea of what you can qualify for. It's like a C level approval letter, where a pre-approval is that conditional loan approval, where you're at least giving the 5 or 6 things that typically break a deal: income, assets. You're given, and you're having an underwriter who actually lives and dies by a report card. If she or he messes up on this conditional loan approval, then they get a ding on this credit on this report card, and that's kind of like their resume. So it's like the loan officer reviews it as well as another person that gives another eye open. So it's another level. But the highest level is not the pre-qual, not the pre-approval. It's that WISE approval that goes through and clears all the condition from that conditional pre-approval, and basically just has those collateral items left over. So
yeah. I just cannot stress this enough. Every time a realtor that I'm coaching or mentoring comes to me with a problem and it's related to something like this, I'm like, did you not have a WISE approval? Like it's like if you don't, you are setting yourself to run into some certain kinds of problems. So last comment that we had here was from Micah. Break a leg. Thanks, Micah. We'll try to. Yeah, we really appreciate all of that stuff. So all right, Kari, let me mention just one more thing, and then we can probably wrap this thing up. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing all that you know about the about the lending business. And obviously there's way more to discuss than this, but I wanted to discuss this topic today because I just know how important this is for realtors to understand.
Well, and if you need to fill me in on one of your weekdays for August, if you need to fill a day, let's get back on.
Okay. Hey, don't throw that out there unless you're serious. I might be taking you up on that.
Cody, we talk every day.
All right. I just want to mention that in September, I am starting something that I call the Unbook Club. I'll explain here in just a minute why I call it the Unbook Club. I'm going to be doing that together with Shelly Johnson. She is a team leader of a mega team in North Carolina. She does that together with her partner, Craig. And she and I are going to be hosting this Unbook Club meeting September 17th. So be on the lookout for the details of that. But here's the idea of it. I wanted to do a book club, but I just knew that realtors were not actually going to really read the book, right? We're talking about realtors here. So here's my little mantra for this thing. They'll do the reading, meaning me and Shelly. They'll do the work. We'll come up with all the topics and information. They'll do the thinking. You just show up that day and listen, and we will share with you the nuggets from the book that we found to be the best. Now, this book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, I highly recommend this book. This has changed the way that I think about not just time management, but just the way that I value my own time, and I value my own skill set. And so if you can read the book, if you want to prove me wrong on that and be one of the people that does the reading, working, and thinking, that'll only add to the conversation. But that'll be a Zoom call that I'll do together with Shelly. We'll be having some details come out on that. And I definitely encourage everybody to join us for that on, I think it's September 17th, if I'm not mistaken. All right, Kari, thank you very much for joining me. You made it comfortable for me to be doing my first ever live kind of sort of on my own together with you as a wingman. It felt very nice to be doing that like we do in the CE classes. And we spent a good portion of the day just getting over technology problems. Almost had a huge problem right at the end with my camera. So I definitely need to get a new camera, but hopefully it turned out good enough in the end. And thank you everybody for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Okay. Bye, y'all.